Hello there, good folks watching the daily vlog. We closed at day number 50 and we decided to take a 2-week hiatus, which took, well, almost 3 times that. I'll tell you why. Now, some changes that we will do going ahead will be the scale. The scale will not be the primary vlog check-in tool to understand how the physique is maturing. So we closed at 221. I've been doing something close to a main gaining. That is where you eat close to maintenance, but maybe a slight bit of surplus, not to the point where it actually accentuates a huge bulk or whatever. Usually people who are primed for a body recomp are people who are newbies. The body is completely new to all the stimulus. But for us, since I've been detrained for almost a year and a half or two after the back injury, we are once again in that zone, although I've been lifting for over a decade. It's actually good compared to being at that limit where you can't really recomp because your body is used to all the stimulus. What replaces the scale? Well, we're going to be analyzing progress more by how the body looks in the mirror, and the scale is replaced by the tape. The tape is a very, very important tool to understand how your body is changing, especially if you're an advanced athlete who's been training for years on end. And that can be a huge difference in terms of simply how you understand psychologically the progress rate, because sometimes the scale can never move and you might be seeing wonderful progress. That's because the body is probably shifting a lot of water and your sodium levels are all over the place, and you could be gaining muscle while losing body fat. So the change in the weight is not that dynamic because the scale just shows net weight. Of course, occasionally I'll throw in a weight update there and here. Number 2, the body when we started was in the shape of a box because we've been detrained, packed a lot of body fat. The shoulders and abdomen were almost on the straight line, if not perfectly on. And now it's almost an inverted triangle, which means we haven't really shifted a lot of weight. Like maybe 20 to 10 pound is the maximum difference we've had, but the dynamic changes is huge, which is why from this point, the tape will actually tell us more, especially looking at my history in the last 50 days of the transformation. And finally, addressing the problems we face. Primarily, if you've seen the vlogs, the upper back was the worst area to repeatedly have inflammations develop over it, especially the rhomboids, traps, maybe all the way under in the erector spinae. It was all over the place. It's completely fine now. What we're going to do for that is, going ahead, I'm going to include at least one mobility session every single day. I say at least one because sometimes if it gets a bit much, I might even do one post-workout. Right now, I'm planning to do cardio pre-workout, and the cardio is not going to be the usual list. We were always doing low intensity, steady state at an even pace of 4 km per hour around that range and no inclination. Right now, we'll switch to a more high intensity interval training pattern, but not at that rate of effort. So the heart rate, I'm going to keep it around 120, around that window, nothing close to 160 or 150, which would obviously make this into an actual HIIT session. But you need to understand the body is very good at adapting if you give it time. So we've been detrained for so long. At this point, we don't want to throw in that pressure out of nowhere. One of the reasons why you see a lot of people dying, especially people who are fitness enthusiasts, celebrities or whatever. I'm not talking about bodybuilders. That's drug abuse. That's a different story. I'm talking about general people who like fitness. We see that in the news day in, day out, especially in India. The reason being, of course, doctors have their own analysis of what's going on. Their diagnosis is obviously spot on. But from my perspective, you don't give sufficient time to your body and you just let it play along with your enthusiasm. One day you see a documentary, crazy motivated, you go kill it in the gym, and well, it might end up killing you one day. You don't want to do that. So we're going to gradually adapt to reintroduce the high intensity. For now, it's going to be incline at 15 to maybe 18%. So that's pretty high, but the speed is going to be fluctuating with 2-minute windows in between 4.5 to maybe 3 km or 2.5 km per hour, and then some cool down and warm up periods like maybe 5-10 minutes. So we'll still do a 30-minute chunk of cardio, but just part of that is going to be truly burning. And followed by that, like I initially said, mobility training. One day we'll probably do the hip flexors, quads. One day we'll do calves and quads, and primarily focus on the back mobility, because if we get a hold of that, that is the only thing that's been holding us back. We'll have no obstacle going ahead. That's the activity side of things. Looking at the food side of things, we're going to have very high volume, very close to maintenance, like nowhere close to a crazy deficit, because we want the body weight to stabilize while the body composition, fat to muscle ratio is constantly changing. Cool. Let's go jump into the first thing we do for the day. Well, actually, the first thing is already done. I prep my meals like the first 2 meals, but the cardio and the mobility. Filming that is probably going to be very hard. I'm going to be all over the floor, like, squirming like a little snake, but let's see. Lovely. Ideally, I'll be doing the cardio and the mobility fasted, but then I have the machine lubrication guy coming in just an hour or an hour 15 minutes, and that is such a short window. So we're going to go with some food. We're starting with some stir-fried rice, egg whites, cashew cream, and this is exactly the same meal as meal number 2 as well. Did it as one batch, saving a lot of time. I put up this gym almost over a year ago and I still don't have a single foam roller until now. So it's just one of those things you think, oh, I'll just buy it, and you never end up. The thing with mobility training, apart from the fact that it puts you on track away from inflammation potentially, is just that it makes you feel so good. You know, you're completely unlocked. You know, that kind of a sense creeps into your head. So that was amazing. I actually do a lot of different types of stretches, but barely film just a few. Primarily because when you're training with actual lifts, you take particular rest windows in between every set and every workout. That gives me time to frame a shot, place the camera, DSLR, tripod, all of that goes in. But with mobility training, it's usually one long stretch and then finally you relax. So there's multiple movements happening for 30, 40 minutes approximately. So I don't really have the patience to set up the camera, or in other words, don't have the time per se, because I don't want to get locked in and then end up making it a 1 hour session. And that's just extra fatigue, extra stress on the body and wastage of time. So I just used my phone and just film a few shots. I don't even use the back camera, you know, I use the crappy front one. So, you know, if it can fetch, might as well call it a dog. And now we have the pre-workout technically after the cardio. So it has to be really large because we're doing pre-workout cardio. We don't want so much depletion to the point where refueling is not adequate. So it's going to be just like the last meal, except we have a way larger portion of carbohydrates, adding some dedicated veggie spinach on the side, sauteed with some lentils if I'm right. Now we didn't add any extra fiber apart from the vegetables that were already added to the stir fry in the last meal, because we didn't want to add any more pressure to the digestion, delay to the point where we had, we had to push the cardio later. We had a very small window between that meal and starting the cardio and mobility work. The same or similar amount of egg whites and cashew cream. So let's jump into that, enjoy this meal. Fairly less work after this until we kick off training, which is wonderful. Do have some call scheduling, which I'm awaiting some responses. And if you're looking for coaching, right now slots are open. Email getinShape@haroon.com for customized, dedicated plans. No copy paste stuff, we don't do that. Not now, not ever. Gonna dive into that. So we'll probably do something like a quick warm-up and start off with some pull downs. Go to rows, one arm, double arm, kind of switch in between, see how the volume kind of feels on the back, because it's been a while since we've consistently trained. With maintenance, we also took a bit of a deload towards the end, then close with some curls. Given that it was lubricated just today, the system is really smooth. Like the grips slid up the holes very, very easily, which is great. And that's a wrap. We'll probably jump into some rows. And yeah, you can look into your phone with workout. It's not a problem. I'm not one of those guys who's very strictly against it. I think it's a matter of perspective. If you can truly not exceed that optimal rest window, you can. I mean, I'm looking at my workout. I also occasionally text. Just make sure you wrap up and jump back onto the session and nobody is going to stop you or your gains. Whew. I think I've got a cramp in one of my knuckles. The left knuckle joint really hurts. Don't know if it's a cramp or just maybe uric acid buildup. Have to get it checked. And with that, we wrap primary back workout. We'll do some curls. Doing some really slow tempo reps with very light weights, 15s. 15s are more than enough if you can maintain this steady, slow pace. You're gonna start feeling the burn, even within the 10 rep range. So now the traditional curls are done. We'll do some look away ones for the outer. Probably drop the weight by just a little so we don't sacrifice any form. See, something that a lot of us kind of shy away from is that we choose a weight for a certain set, and then although we kind of fail midway, we want to wrap up the entire set with that weight itself. It's okay, you can do trial and error and figure out your sweet spot in terms of the load. But if you have 12 reps and on the 8th rep, you kind of can't really do another repetition with the given weight, drop the weight. It's okay, it's not a problem. It only makes sense that your muscle has a certain amount of fuel in the tank, and as it gets depleted, as you go through each rep effectively, if you're doing them that way, it'll have very less left, and that means you got to beat that leftover glycogen down with a slightly lighter load without sacrificing form. A lot of people just go in for momentum, and in certain cases it can be okay. Other than that, don't ever shy away from dropping the load. It's good for you if you plan it out right. As that's getting ready, I'm going to snack on some cheese blocks. Proteins and delicious, go-to. I'm just really hungry, and when I do the egg whites onto the dosa, especially in such a large portion, I've got to do another one as well. It usually takes fairly long. Got my egg dosas, egg white dosas, dal curry, and a bunch of whole eggs. Now the detour that we took midway was obviously longer than the actual main gaining phase. It should have been just 2 weeks, but maybe push it to 4 weeks, but 6 weeks or 7 weeks is a bit much. Now remember, always, before you close any protocol that you've designed for a certain goal, remember to have some fun. Because if you don't have fun, you're not really going to be super consistent, and you will definitely crash and burn. If that fun is taking a slight detour from your already existing plan and affecting the rate of progress just a bit, it's still fine. The big picture is what matters. So we're going to have some fun, transform, and above all, retain as much muscle as we positively can. Malik Pakla.